Hello everyone, this is part 14 of What If Naruto Was Abused and Obtained Mokuton, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Naruto never thought he would ever find himself in one of Konoha's war rooms. It was a reality so far from him and yet a change in leadership, and here he was, with Danzo, the Jonin commander, Anbu and two of Danzo's guards. Sasuke was most likely sidelined for some reason or the other. It was impressive for Danzo to call his weapon to discuss such matters of village security. He expected to be summoned and told what was needed to be done. Only given instructions but never given an opportunity for input. He smiled, it wasn't something to brag about. In fact, if Danzo hadn't insisted, Naruto wouldn't have agreed to come here. He didn't want to partake in anything that resulted in war. He would be forced to give honest opinions. He glanced at Shikamaru's father for a second and then back at Danzo, who sat with the map of the elemental nations. Iwagakure is threatening war if we try to impose ourselves on Sunagakure. But that they have made such a threat means they too don't want a war. Konoha cannot afford it at this point, but if forced, we will have to defend our interests. The war hawk turned to him. And you'll be playing a vital role in ensuring that Konoha's interests are protected. I have not seen how you control the power of the Kyuubi aside from what Baki told me. As such, I will want to see a demonstration. Now it was coming back to this. A puppet, a toy that had to dance in front of its masters. There was a limit to how much nonsense one person could take. And Naruto would soon reach his limit. We would have to do something like that outside of Konoha. We can't have it done close. It will only cause panic, Shikaku said. He assumed the only reason Naruto was brought in was because Danzo figured he needed to have Naruto fight for him. It must have become apparent that the blonde was too powerful to control or to try to strip off the Kyuubi. Answer, he came with the plan of trying to show him he was valued. A smart man. But Naruto wasn't stupid either. He must have surely figured as much. Shikaku wondered what the blonde thought of this situation. And if he was considering leaving Konoha. He's already seen his ancestral home. There was no saying that he wouldn't consider going back there. After all, his mother had only been brought to Konoha to become a Jinchuriki. Uzushiogakure was his home. It nevertheless would be a devastating blow to Konoha's military if Naruto left. After all, if the blonde left, Sasuke was surely to follow. A double blow, but one that could be avoided. I have thought of that. We shall do so in battle situations. If Iwa tries to send shinobi toward Suna, you will be sent to confront them, alone. Naruto just took it in, silently. He was being told what was expected of him. Not being asked his opinion. Whether he agreed or disagreed with what Danzo was saying was irrelevant. I have sent a message to the Fire Lord to ask him to put some pressure on the Earth Lord. If achieved, it should make sure that we have some time to prepare sooner. Danzo explained. I sent my men to Suna to eliminate everyone in the leadership positions. We will install people who will be loyal to Konoha. In doing so, will we tell Iwa that we have stepped back? Shikaku asked. That was one way to keep control of another nation. A shadow control. You could control even the Fire Nation by being in control of the feudal lord. Danzo was brutal in his method. But it would be effective. We cannot spare shinobi to occupy Suna. We must deal with it differently. Danzo stared at Shikaku. At least, he respected the man's genius and trusted he wouldn't try to sabotage his plans. Do you not think it will work? It might buy us time. But we can't be seen around too much, and whether it works depends on who we put as leader. It cannot be Baki. Danzo was quick to say. Shikaku smiled inwardly. If Danzo hadn't quickly shot that idea, he would have suggested it. It was convincing that way. But he could also understand why the man didn't want Baki in that position. You have been to Suna, what do you think? Shikaku asked Naruto. Some form of legitimacy could be achieved through putting one of the Kazekige's children. Young but Gaara is feared in that village. He would make the perfect leader. When he is feared, don't they hate him? Precisely because of such a reason. He wants to be better. He wants to prove to them he is a good person. On the flip side of things, we want Suna to be led effectively. He isn't the emotional type. He will do what must be done. Naruto adopted a thoughtful look before adding. It is a matter of playing the cards right to ensure his loyalty. Danzo didn't think that Naruto was capable of such cold strategies. His reasoning for bringing him here wasn't his mind. A weapon only needed to fight and listen to orders. A smart weapon with loyalty issues would only prove to be dangerous to both him and his dreams. Are you suggesting we use his sister? I didn't say such a thing. But I suppose if you want to keep Gaara on a leash, you keep the only family member he has left. But that poses a problem. Iwa would likely see through that plan. Indeed, Shikaku nodded. We can't have her in this village. We can't be seen to have anything of Suna at ransom. It will blow up everything. And we need to resist a little. If we just give up like that, Iwa will notice something is up. That is why Naruto will confront whatever they send toward Suna. But he does that and eliminate them, Iwa becomes poised to strike. We have to avoid major blows, minor scuffles will be okay. Anything major and it is war. Shikaku said in a stern tone. We can have some people watch over her in Suna. But the village has to offer some sort of compensation to the invasion. And we need to send a smaller unit to Suna. I will send Kakashi and some Jonin then. They will head to Suna and remain there. If Iwa decides to march, they will confront them. Danzo said. As long as he could delay things a little, he was fine. But that still won't solve the bigger issue, which is Suna's financial position. Any attempt to stop the Wind Lord from sending missions to us won't benefit the Leaf. Danzo said with a shake of his head. I will work out on how to ensure the Wind Lord starts supporting Suna. Once this has been achieved, Suna will be given instructions on improving its military strength. Shikaku knew this was coming. Kids would be forced into hard training. The adults would do more than they usually do. And when Danzo's war came, they would be sent first. To die first. That man wasn't going to send Konoha shinobi to die when he had a village full of tools for him to use. What of the threat posed by the Akatsuki? There's still much we do not know. We can't move recklessly when we do not know. Danzo was a little dismissive. Shikaku, what do you understand about Kirigaku's position right now? The man was not possibly thinking about invading the mist, was he? It would be difficult for Konoha to pull off. They would need ships, and Kiri being adept at it, they could sink their ships. A large-scale invasion was out of the picture. It has come out if it's civil war and has been rebuilding over the past years. I do not have much information aside from that. I see. Danzo paused a moment before speaking again. One reason I called you two here is that there are going to be changes in Konoha. Starting from the academy. Shikaku, your Jonin have been slacking off. They need to be all given proper tests. I want you to arrange groups of capable Jonin. They will be training with Naruto to get used to what is it like to face a Jinchuriki. Our enemies have 2 Jinchuriki each. We failed to deal with the weakest of the Beiyu. We need to improve on that. Naruto wished he was out on a mission at this point. Training shinobi. Getting people jumping on him. Danzo was truly preparing for war. The academy kids were going to be out through hell. In Danzo's Konoha, Sakura would probably never have become Genin if there hadn't been an improvement in her skills. I will make the arrangements. It must not just be fooling around. There must be intent to kill on both sides. Danzo was firm on this point. We have to deal with the sound. It attacked us along with Orochimaru. It is hardly relevant, Shikaku said. We would be wasting resources going after it when we already have Iwa to deal with. But we cannot forgive them for their actions. They must pay for the blood that was shed, Danzo replied in a hardened tone. Once we have stabilized Suna, we will move against them. It will also send a strong message against any small nation that may threaten to act against us. Shikaku shook his head. This is just going to make things worse. I have no interest in occupying the sound, just its destruction for attempting the same with Konoha. We will not be in conflict with any great nation if we do this, Danzo rebutted. You may leave, he said to Naruto. The blonde nodded and then departed without another word. How loyal do you think he is? Danzo went straight to it after Naruto was gone. A flight risk, the Anbu replied. This has been the assessment for a while now. The same with Sasuke. Danzo turned to Shikaku. Do you disagree with this? How could he disagree with the truth? Naruto could leave Konoha at any moment, and with his power, trying to fight him would be just a needless loss of valuable shinobi. Are you perhaps trying to get him to train with the best Jonin in attempt to learn his weaknesses? Shikaku asked after a light bulb moment. That is just another reason. Shikaku shuddered. He hoped there wasn't going to be a day Danzo suddenly comes and say, today, it won't be just training, restrain Naruto. He could see that happening if the Warhawk saw progress. The frightening thing was Naruto was secretive about his abilities. He was never going to show them everything, and no doubt, wasn't going to show them his real weaknesses if he didn't have way of dealing with it. Shikaku hoped disaster didn't await them. Because if Danzo goes that route and fails, there would be hell to pay. We cannot have a Jinchuriki who is not loyal and not know how to stop him if he were to turn on us. That would be careless. As much as he was loath to admit, Danzo wasn't being completely irrational. He was making sense. Earlier, Tsunade was willing to admit to this strange feeling, relief with a spice of happiness. Not since Hiruzen stopped being her sensei did she ever think she would experience such emotion because the old man had woken up. He was far from the professor who taught them many years ago, just an old man. But as she has come to realize, an old man who kept this monstrous beast of Konoha at leash. To keep it from trying to abuse its overwhelming strength. He wasn't just a kind old man who followed the whims of the peace ideology. In fact, he was strong-willed. He was willing to shoulder so much pain, just to stop needless bloodshed. Had the Kumo incident involving the Hyuga clan occurred while Danzo was Hokage, a war would have occurred there and then. Over the greed of a man who respected strength and strength alone, and a man who had one simple principle: you were either a tool or an enemy. Danzo didn't do friends. He had people who were useful to him. And now wanted villages which would be useful to him. The road led to bloodshed. Tsunade smiled warmly as Hiruzen lifted his head, tried to sit up on the bed. Shizune was quick to help him out. She glanced at Jiraiya. He too was happy, but kept an expressionless mask. Took you long enough to wake up? Tsunade's tone was stern, her warmth disappearing in the worries of another war lurking if Danzo wasn't stopped. Hiruzen moved his stiff muscles. An aching old body. To think he would fail at this level. And even failing to die in his misery. Perhaps there was something that kept him alive. A duty he had to perform before going to meet the condemnation of his predecessors and one successor. This room, he was obviously at his compound. It would have been pleasant if he saw either Konohamaru or Asuma as soon as he woke up. But the fact that it was these two meant that there was something happening in the village or outside. How long? A week? That long? Hiruzen asked. Even Jiraiya looked very serious. How did things go? Naruto and Sasuke killed Orochimaru after he fled the village. Suna retreated. Jiraiya reported, moving away from the door after ensuring that there was no one to listen in on the conversation. The village is fine. There were no major casualties. But, Danzo became acting Hokage. Hiruzen felt an uppercut. A knee to the gut and a stab through the chest. This felt worse than realizing the true nature of his beloved student. He was happy Orochimaru was dead and in the hands of Naruto, but that Danzo was Hokage made him wish he was dreaming. But this was reality. He should have known something was up. He should have taken measures to stop this from happening. It just meant that Koharu and Homaru betrayed him. The daimyo. Yes, he got to him then. But what of Homura and Koharu? Even if Danzo had managed to convince the daimyo that he should be acting Hokage, those two should have been able to stand in the guard and tell him of my wishes. Jiraiya frowned. He was never able to solve anything. Not even how Suna was able to get inside the village. Danzo came in and blocked any investigation. His route was doing everything. Even Inoiki and Ibiki were being sidelined. But the glaring thing about it all was the silence of those two. Danzo did something. Blackmail or something sinister. They didn't support him, but they didn't speak against him. They just kept quiet. Hiruzen shuddered. He was now afraid. Danzo Hokage. This was bad news for the shinobi world. He needed to get up and sort things now. He doubted it would be easy. Danzo had even felt betrayed when Tobirama chose him as his successor. And perhaps it was telling. Nobody epitomized the ideals of the second Hokage better than Danzo. He had idolized the second. And yet, he had been skipped. Tobirama must have seen that Danzo could never be trusted with the power. He was extreme. Once more, Hiruzen had failed Konoha. Had he taken steps to quell Danzo long ago, none of this would be happening. It was because of his own weakness that he did not order for Danzo's execution even when he committed treason. Not just once. After all, even the Uchiha massacre had been done behind his back. He'd been open to dialogue. But Danzo had ordered Itachi. A complete wipeout of the entire clan. It hadn't been necessary. But another one of his failures to live with. Naruto. Hiruzen's eyes sharpened. What is happening to Naruto? He asked, almost in a panicked tone. Nothing bad has happened, yet. Hiruzen let loose of a long breath. At least Naruto was fine. The opinion of that man when it came to the blonde was obvious. And it didn't take a genius to figure out how he would treat him. Then what is happening? Upon assuming power, Danzo ordered that Naruto and Sasuke go to Suna. They were to force it to submit or destroy it. Fortunately, nothing came to that. But by then, Suna had already sent a message to Iwagakure. Konoha and Iwa haven't directly spoken, but there are tensions. According to Naruto, Iwagakure won't permit Konoha to take over Suna. Danzo must have really been plotting this for long. No, if he issued his orders immediately, he had to have known an invasion was going to happen. War. There is that threat from Iwa. But I don't think Danzo wants to go that far. Suna isn't in a good situation. He isn't likely to risk anything for it if Iwa persists. Meaning he would rather have it destroyed. Hiruzen smiled bitterly and glanced at the silent Tsunade. Did she have some thoughts about this? How did they pull this off? We are thinking Danzo had to have known about it. But he assumed the power while we were still fighting and immediately went to work in dealing with it. The results of the investigation are known to him only. Not even Shikaku knows anything. Hiruzen nodded. He couldn't allow Danzo drag Konoha toward war. He couldn't permit that man to destroy Suna. Naruto was no doubt going to be used in that regard as a weapon. Danzo won't likely want to leave his position. Get me Shikaku, discreetly. We will discuss steps to take before I go back to the office. Hi. Jiraiya allowed his smile to show. Before you do that, don't you want to know about your condition? The Sandaime Hokage smiled. It isn't anything good, I assume. I know my body. But regardless of what it is, I can't just sit here and allow Danzo to continue. I must fight him, even at the cost of my own life. Tsunade shook her head. What was wrong with these people that they didn't think twice about giving up their lives? Was it the same for Dan? You can't use chakra. Your chakra was poisoned and it had a negative consequence on your chakra system. If you try to manipulate chakra, you'll just spread the disease all over and it will kill you. It is fine, Hiruzen said. It was a miracle that he was alive. But that just meant that he couldn't really become an active Hokage. But everything becomes meaningless if I do something that costs my life and there is no chosen successor. Tsunade gritted her teeth. He was directing this toward her even if he wasn't looking at her. She wasn't ready for this. I'll take it. Hiruzen smiled happily. Excellent. It goes without saying that Danzo mustn't know anything until I confront him. We don't want him planning ahead. It isn't like he doesn't have a plan for when you wake up. He isn't stupid after all. Jiraiya said. Indeed, the professor agreed. This is why we must be careful about how we move. Or it could all be for nothing. The streets were quite lively. The mood different. It wasn't suffocating as it once was. And none were happier than Tsuki and Ayami. He could understand their happiness. They'd been at his corner for years now. Even when his stomach threatened to go hungry. They were there, always. The good thing was that they were getting customers, thanks to a rising stock. The people who would have normally ignored this place because of him now came to eat. To enjoy the joys that he too enjoyed. As he savored his fourth bowl, Naruto glanced at his right. Kakashi took the stool on the right and smiled at Tsuki, making his order. Naruto hadn't seen much of anyone since his return to Suna. 2 days now. He hadn't even seen anyone. Not even Sasuke. He wouldn't have stepped out of his house if his thought process hadn't been chaotic. Wretched with treacherous thoughts and bitterness. You're rather scarce these days. Even Sakura was asking if you were in the village and I had to reply with I don't know because I didn't know. Kakashi spoke, his tone quiet. Been doing some thinking but not really looking forward to meeting people. Kakashi smiled inwardly, remembering his dark days. The days he pushed friends away after getting into it too deep with Danzo. Then again, he'd been somewhat lost after losing Rin. Friends had been worried. If it was Sasuke, only Sakura would ask questions. The Uchiha wasn't a social person. He didn't do well in those spaces. But Naruto was. And he performed well. Naruto enjoyed being with people, amusing himself by pressing them in uncomfortable places. He wasn't a sadist, just slightly mischievous. I guess things have changed. Yeah, Naruto nodded. It's a little difficult to accept and to take in. I'm also bothered by the situation with the third, he smiled bitterly. That was something he didn't want to face. Naruto didn't know how he'd deal with that. There were 3 people closest to his heart, Sasuke, Ino and Hiruzen. There would be grief if anything happened to those people. Well, I've gathered my thoughts. That's good. You should see people. There are people who worry. I know, sensei. I know. But you always want to present yourself in a good picture. It does nothing to ease the worries of others when you are at the edge of a cliff. I think it is in those moments you're allowed to be free, Naruto explained. Ready for war. Nobody is ever ready for war. You lose people you love. You lose yourself. War makes you realize that no matter how great your power is, you can't protect everyone. His father was still Kakashi's sensei in the Third World War. Kakashi was still a skilled shinobi then. But even then, he lost his teammates. His father couldn't be there to protect his students because he was out on another mission. The same could happen to him. No human was omnipresent. To desire such power would be trying to be God. And so many have fallen into the dark path for trying to reach where no human could. Reality is a bitter thing. We all want to protect the things we value. We want to be there. To say you cannot protect everything sounds hopeless, and you detach yourself a little, because as you see someone, you tell yourself, I can't protect you. And so to save yourself, you detach yourself. But we live with other people. We are humans. We will care. If you love, you will hope to protect. You will give everything to protect. It was when you failed after giving everything that crushed you. What more did you have to do? Was it all hopeless from the beginning? But who could live without hope? Even Sasuke had hopes. For a human, faith and hope were the wheels that kept them moving. Do you keep your heart cold because you don't want to hurt? Kakashi asked. Naruto shook his head. That is just misery. Nobody lives forever, he chuckled, a bit bitterly. It sounds hopeless, but the truth is, we will all die. I may even die before you, sensei. I didn't know you were this realistic. Once more, Naruto laughed. I've always been like this. It was what helped me cope. You accept what the world is. Denial leads to more pain and suffering. But I've just never let reality stop me from living my life. Sure, I will die, but I'm not going to make it easy. Even when my legs are cut off, a sword plunged into my chest, I'm still going to crawl, trying to keep alive. Because we all want to live. Except people who've lost all hope. To live is better, huh? Dead people change nothing. What is dead remains so. But as long as you live, there is still a chance. Then again, it usually is the hope that kills you, he smiled. Do you think I'm extreme, sensei? Kakashi shook his head. We all choose the way we want to live. How we cope with our burdens. If by your choice, you have friends. You can earnestly laugh and we can still have such a conversation without compromised morals, then you are fine. Well, anything has to be better than Sasuke. Can't you talk without bringing my name into it? Sasuke butt in, as he pulled a stool, and sat on his left side. Naruto glanced at the Uchiha and then at his ramen. It was getting cold. He was talking too much instead of eating. Hello, to you too, Sasuke. You've been absent. I came to your house twice. You're not the only one, I hear. I'd thought maybe Danzo had sent you out again. No, don't think that is ever happening. Even if I'm told I'm going to be alone, I won't be. Not being trusted means there will always be people watching me. Even now, we are being watched. Then where were you? In my basement. I'm afraid while there, I don't know much what is happening in the outside world, Naruto replied. He smiled, glancing at Sasuke at the corner of his eyes. Got bored without me? Don't be ridiculous. Naruto laughed and then turned to Kakashi. You need to introduce this one to new friends, Kakashi-sensei. Without me, he has no one to talk to aside from his vengeful self in the reflection of the mirror. Kakashi I smiled. It's not that bad, is it? He then turned serious. Naruto, Sasuke, listen, I've been told to prepare for a journey to Suna. We will be camped there. We may even have a confrontation with a Wagakur. Kakashi wasn't sure where he stood with Danzo. Given the past relationship, he was sure the man wasn't going to trust him again. But he still knew his value to the leaf. Be very careful with Danzo. You're either useful or not. And if you're not, then you become his enemy. Danzo believes only he can lead Konoha to great things. He loves and worships the leaf. But in a fanatical way. He wouldn't think twice about having someone killed, no matter their power, if he realized they can't be used and are only an obstacle to him. You two work together well. Danzo may try to minimize that. And he will play every trick he knows to get it done. Danzo knows some of us will never leave the leaf, so he'll push us around. And without care of whether we like him or not. But the two of you are different. There is nothing keeping you here. We know that, Sasuke said. And it has already started. Just nothing dirty. We haven't done anything to warrant it. Sometimes you don't need to do anything. It is the mere suspicion that can get paranoid people to act, Kakashi stated in a firm tone. He smiled, standing up. But I do hope to see you when I return. Of course. Once Kakashi was gone, Naruto released a long breath. Has Danzo come with the location of Itachi? No. I'm thinking of asking him to let me go on the search for him. That is going to be denied. And I won't be able to go with you. Danzo isn't going to risk having the Kyuubi taken. Naruto knew Danzo wanted Itachi dead, but he would have it done on his terms, to control the narrative. He certainly didn't want Itachi spilling the beans. Destruction. The man lived for it. I'm getting impatient, especially when I'm just sitting with nothing to do, Sasuke admitted. At this rate, I may end up leaving on my own. And will not permit anyone to stop me. Naruto wouldn't even waste his breath. If Sasuke reached a point where he decided he was going to kill Itachi, he needed to leave Konoha, then words were not going to change anything. Most certainly, if he found out about his connection with his brother and what he knew, it was going to hit their relationship hard. Let us hope something comes up before then. Naruto replied in thought. I suppose I must also take safety measures. He said as a clone appeared in a puff of smoke. The clone was already transformed, a black-haired woman. He nodded and she walked away. You're scheming a lot these days. Naruto smiled. You think so? Then, what are you doing? The Sandaime told me the feudal lord likes me. And in terms of succession, he plays a vital role when there is no chosen successor. Even if there is a successor chosen, wills can still be bent. The council convenes and formalities are done. But what if something happens and the feudal says, I don't like this successor, let us select another one? Wouldn't they be forced to abide by the wishes of the Hokage? No. Naruto shook his head. Feudal lords are powerful, my friend. I don't know about them pushing out an active Hokage, but when there is no one in the official capacity, they can hold the keys and it depends on who they like. If the Sandaime choose, let's say Jiraiya, but the feudal lord says, he prefers, Danzo and is firm on it. And then says, if Danzo isn't elected, he pulls out. Konoha can crumble as we know it and we would become like Suna, invading other villages for survival. Sasuke hadn't known feudal lords were that powerful. So, what are you doing? Just making sure things are run in order and nobody is using mind tricks to fool the daimyo. And if somebody is, well, obviously, a new daimyo will have be selected. Or another plan to be made. Forest of Death. Naruto flashed his eyes open, sensing movement from behind. Anko was trying to be sneaky, but he felt her. Her hands touched his shoulders, her bust pressed against his back. He could feel her warm breath and sound of her heartbeat. Haven't seen you in while, not since you returned from training, Anko whispered in a quiet, yet chilling tone. She licked his ear, and then continued. Been avoiding me. Naruto ignored the shiver he felt down his spine. In this situation, he wished he had taken that pervert on his offer. Jiraiya had offered to take him out to experience the joys, he would say with a dreamy look. But Naruto had refused. Perhaps it was the wrong choice then. Been too long, Anko. Naruto replied with a smile. He didn't move. He was sitting on a small wooden pole, meditating, at least he was before the snake mistress showed up. You've grown, her hands were touching his forearm. She pressed, from the shoulder to the elbow feeling his muscles. A child has to grow. If Naruto said he wasn't getting a little excited, he'd be lying. What happened next nearly left him frozen, eyes nearly popping from the eye sockets. Anko's hand moved toward his junk and she grabbed him. Well, you have grown up in all places, she said with a whistle. It took a couple of moments for Naruto to calm himself, school his almost red features. He amused himself, he wasn't turning like Hinata, was he? Lack of experiences brought this much result. That's called abusing a child, Anko. She laughed, removing herself from his back. The woman then walked over to stand in front of him. He was grown. The stories about him weren't false. How she wished she'd been around when he returned. You killed him. Naruto smiled. Ah, that I did. I must admit, it was satisfying. It would have been better if he was begging for his life. Either way, staked him, chopped him into two and then made him disappear. Should have been there to see it, Anko complained. You owe me. Naruto folded his hands across his chest and then smiled mischievously. I would say you owe me. You got me a little excited down here and then just disappeared. Anko looked at him and then burst out laughing. What are you, a child? I am a child. Are you serious? Naruto held out both hands and then replied. I spent 3 years alone in an island, just training. There wasn't human contact. I only left once. But even then, the person I saw was undesirable. Stabbed me in the chest. Before Anko could respond, an Anbu dropped behind Naruto. You are wanted in the Sarutobi compound, now, he whispered in a robotic tone. Naruto looked at Anko and then smiled, waving his right hand. Duty calls, gotta run. And just like that, Naruto disappeared along with the Anbu. Anko sighed, and she wanted to show him his bingo book entry. Sarutobi compound. If tears came easily, they would have been streaming through his cheeks. But they did not. Only a smile settled on Naruto's face as he saw the Sandaime sitting on the bed, Tsunade on the side. But there was no sign of Jiraiya. But Naruto wasn't concerned about it. He was simply overjoyed to see the old man awake. And by the looks of things, he seems to have been awake for a while now. I was beginning to fear for the worst, Naruto said in a warm tone. He sat on the bed, and glanced at Tsunade before staring at the wooden floor. The Sandaime chuckled lightly. There is still some life in this body, he said. It would appear so, Naruto said, letting out a long breath. He felt as if the wheels that had come off in his mind had suddenly been put back. The relief washing over every cell of his body felt like a tonic. He was happy. This was going to put an end to the reign of Danzo and his misery. It had been a free fall straight to the depths of hell since that cold-hearted man took over the hot seat. But things were moving back to the way they were. Just the presence of this person would stall the ambitions Danzo. He wasn't stupid enough to think Danzo was simply going to welcome the Sandaime back and then depart the office. There could be some fireworks. Naruto glanced at the third. And he realized, he really didn't have much to say to the old man. Sadness would have gripped him tightly had the worst happened, yet, words failed him at this moment. I'm sorry things were difficult for you. Tsunade has already filled me on what you've been doing, Hiruzen said in a bitter tone. If I had done things right, you wouldn't have faced the prospect of being made a weapon. That had been knocking at his door. Of course, he owed Konoha nothing to have actually planned on agreeing to such terms. But this could be avoided now. Nobody sees the future. We always think we have tomorrow. Even the best laid plans can be destroyed by a single unseen hand. But I had seen Danzo's hand. He has always been dreaming about Hokage. Hiruzen said in a firm tone. This kind of talk changes nothing, old man. Danzo is not just dreaming, he is sitting at the helm of the village at this moment. We must think now. We must think tomorrow, Naruto replied in a hardened tone. Naruto is right. Regrets over failures aren't going to solve anything. We can think about it when we have steered the village in the right way. Because right now, we are heading toward war. This is a situation that we can avoid, Tsunade said in a hardened tone. You, speaking like this, have you come to accept the old man's offer? Yeah, Tsunade nodded without any enthusiasm. I can't allow the village my grandfather founded to be turned into a war machine. I don't want to be involved in a needless war. It is going to cripple the village and cause more suffering for many. Some people have suffered enough. Because of wars, there were many orphans. Many who would never to be loved but would only know to hate. People like Orochimaru turned out the way they are because of parents lost. It was sad. This current generation was not ready for such bloodshed. They were born in peace times. Didn't know the horrors of war. If they could be shielded from it, Tsunade would do so. Naruto nodded. What now? You're not just going to walk into the office, are you? Hiruzen smiled. Of course. There are plans made. I don't want you involved in any of it. The adults will handle it. That is for the best. I just wanted for you to see that I'm alive and well. Naruto nodded and then got up. Tsunade followed him out of the room. After walking for a bit, she stopped and so did he. But he was the first to speak. Where is Jiraiya? On a mission. At this time. Does he know? Tsunade nodded. It involves capturing a Bayu. He wants to halt the Akatsuki's plan. If they can halt their hunt, then they can formulate a strategy on how to deal with them. They appear to be moving for first until the last. If the third is taken out of the picture, they can't move to the fourth. Naruto nodded. This seemed like a delicate process. Won't the old man need him? No. Tsunade shook her head. There are plans in motion. You want to tell me something. And I suppose it is something the old man didn't say. He doesn't have much time. I thought if he didn't use chakra it would be fine. But being alive is slowly killing him. Orochimaru was truly intent on making sure he died. He must have known that if it was normal poison, I would be able to deal with it. Naruto leaned against a wall, an expressionless look settled on his face. This was disturbing. Really, it was the hope that killed you. What was he to do now? Well, there was nothing he could do. And that was damning, but such was the inescapable truth of being a mere mortal. I see. He closed his eyes. How long? Tsunade shook her head. I can't tell. He didn't want anyone to know, but I felt you should know. If he goes to the office, it is only going to stress him. And there is no way he isn't going to use chakra. He knows, but he wants to correct things. Are all Hokage going to die by making a sacrifice? Is it the fate of all of them? Tsunade smiled bitterly. She wasn't the best advocate to this. I know they die by their own choice. Nobody forces them to do anything. Indeed, before they sacrifice anyone and anything, they are willing to sacrifice themselves. Perhaps it is the knowledge that they've been sending shinobi to die during their reign. Naruto faced Tsunade and smiled sadly. But for this situation to be corrected, there is no other choice, is there? No. Tsunade shook her head. Only he can change things. Any attempt from one of us will amount to treason. But one feels that if it gets Danzo out of his position, then treason is something one can live with, Naruto replied. Tsunade narrowed her eyes. Don't even think about it. You have a long future ahead of you. You can't think of wasting it all because of Danzo. He isn't Hokage but acting. He can be removed. Well, he will be now that the old man is awake. I think I'll sleep a lot better and won't have to think about being in sooner to make it history. Naruto's house. Ino circa. Naruto was cut off by a jab to the gut by Ino. He just opened the door and this welcomed him. He could understand why she was punching him, but he didn't think she'd get straight to it. I deserved that. Of course you did. Ino shouted. Do you know how many times I came to check up on you? Her frustration was apparent. Naruto would never do something as to ignore someone at his door. He was opening now because he heard her. She was the last person he would ignore. Without anyone even whispering to him, he had known that she would come to look for him. He'd not seen her since he just took on a tailed beast bomb during the invasion. I don't know. Been rather absent-minded, Naruto replied, folding his hands across his chest. So absent-minded that you couldn't bother to even come look for me. Naruto sighed. It hasn't been a pleasant time, Ino. I've had a lot to do and a lot to think about, he said. Ino stared, mimicking his posture. She knew things were hard. She knew that. But just because things were hard didn't mean that he had to right to shut her out. She worried. It's not like I don't know that, she scoffed. Are you going to let me stand outside? What does a girl want at this time of the night? Shouldn't you be resting at home? I'm an adult. Naruto laughed. I'm sure you had to beg Daddy to let you go out, he said. Are you not going to hit me if I let you come in? I could just shove you back in. I'm being polite here. Naruto sighed and moved aside. Ino stepped in and he closed the door behind him. She just started walking as if she was familiar with the house. He followed her into the living room. She stood by the entrance, waiting for him. He stopped in front of her and realized what she was waiting for. He held out his hands and she held him tightly. Almost like she was afraid he would slip away once more. I was really worried about you, she said with emotion. I'm a big guy. I can handle myself, Naruto replied in a warm tone. There was silence for a couple of moments before they separated. An awkward silence as she stared into his eyes. After a moment, she twisted around and then went to throw herself on the couch. With her face buried on a cushion, Ino spoke. How are you? A normal person would be very happy about me. I'm starting to become famous in the streets, Naruto said. He could have gone to sit on the other couch, but he decided to sit with Ino. He lifted her legs, settled comfortably and then put them on him. Ino didn't move her face from the cushion. I know it comes at a cost. This is why I like you. You see things other people don't. Shikamaru pointed it out for me, Ino admitted in a bitter tone. You think you're cursed to be miserable? Naruto laughed at her question. She would ask such a thing. Maybe. You're not afraid of being cursed as well. If you stick around, you may also fall in line. Ino turned around, to look into his eyes. She smiled. If I don't stick around, you'll only be left with Sasuke. That can't be healthy. I don't want you to be alone. I was touched when you shed tears for me by the way. Ino hurled a cushion toward his face. Laughing, Naruto caught it and then sent it back, hitting her across the face. You're not supposed to throw it back. You didn't tell me the rules. Naruto replied in an innocent tone. Ino glared and just thought of kicking him. I was worried, you know. I know, Ino. And I was honestly touched. You are the first person to have expressed such concern for me in that way for me. I haven't had a lot of people to care for me, but to know that you have, really made me happy. I've even reserved a special place for you in my heart. This is why I can't stay away from you. You'll be lonely and miserable with no one to care for you. That's funny, I thought it was because you loved me. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. But I don't dislike you. Naruto laughed at this cryptic response. If people saw you coming, they're going to start rumors, you know. Who cares? Naruto looked at her and then shifted. Ino felt her heart pounding, her heart racing seeing his movements. She was frozen for a moment as he moved above her. His hands were on the sides, balancing him to keep their bodies apart. She yearned for that contact. She yearned for him to close the distance and just fall on her. But he did not move. But rather, just smiled. It was a smile she would never forget. Almost angelic. It caused her cheeks to paint slightly pink. Her nerves to run wild with foreign excitement. And then, he slowly descended. She thought he was going to kill her, but to her disappointment, he did not. She nearly groaned at this. He just rested his head on her bust. She flushed, but quickly got over it. When he seemed to notice it, he stifled a laugh and then shifted back, resting his head on her belly. I've never had anyone hold me lovingly, can you do that for me, Ino? His voice was almost a whisper. Ino didn't need to think about it. She wrapped her arms around him. And then spoke. You know, for a moment I thought you were going to kill me. Ha ha ha, that is so like you, Naruto replied. I thought of it but then got nervous. I thought, what if you reject it? It would hurt. Uzumaki, I am at your house at night, lying on your couch and you are top of me. Naruto laughed. There was a bit of frustration in her tone. There is no need to say it like that, Ino. He said, lifting up his head. His chin rested on her belly. I really can't see you face because of your rack. Ino hit him on his forehead. Ouch. That's what you kya. It was the sudden move that shifted her entire body. Next moment he was atop of her and the next, she was above him, inches away from his face. When Naruto placed both hands at the back of her head, Ino leaned in. Their lips brushed. She couldn't hold herself, she felt she was being teased. But before she grew impatient, he captured her lower lip. She felt a jolt of excitement down her spine. Her eyes closed. His breath served as a relaxant. She enjoyed the smoothness of his lips. He separated a little too quickly but didn't permit her to look into his face. She was pushed down, her face resting on his chest. Not bad, Uzumaki. Yet I hear complaints. It's in your head. Must be crazy then, he said carelessly. There was a point in my life where I wondered if I would ever be loved by someone else. As a child, I could have never imagined such a moment, but I'm sure I would have never thought it would happen. Thank you for being in my life, Ino. You shouldn't say things like that. They ruin things. I suppose. You don't have to thank me. I enjoy being in your company. Well, I'm delightful, Naruto said. Can I close my eyes? Just wake up. Ha ha ha, and if I don't, tell my mother nothing happened. Or father is going to interrogate you until he gets to the truth. Following day, Karen shivered slightly when Naruto stepped into the office of Danzo. She felt his immense chakra. The potency of it slapped her hard, but there was some warmth in it. Seeing her, he seemed to recognize her. As she did, they had met in Otogakure after all. Karen, he smiled, waving at her. Naruto. That's rather subdued, Naruto said, his eyes turning to Danzo. This dangerous man was bringing Karen into the picture. Surely trying to score some bonus points. He hoped nothing was done on her mind. Yet, he didn't worry much. Just knowing that Danzo was going to be removed from his position made him want to smile smugly and even tell the man some unpleasant words. But he swallowed his disrespect to the acting Hokage. Sai found her after going back to the hideout. She is my gift to you. Karen narrowed her eyes. She wanted to tell the man that she wasn't anyone's gift. Not even Naruto, even when he was a fellow Uzumaki. You have my thanks. Repay it by doing tasks assigned you. Of course. Have you seen Iwa's bingo book? Naruto shook his head. If you're asking, then they have put me and Sasuke in it. Nothing surprising. Though, I would have preferred they not know my Jinchuriki status. Danzo threw the book at Naruto. What is done is done. Indeed. Once more, you have my thanks. Naruto held out his right hand and Karen grabbed it. They disappeared from the office. Karen found herself staring at the door of a modest house. Naruto opened it and then welcomed her. She stepped inside and listened to the door shut behind her. She folded her hands and then stared at him. Back at the hideout, there was nothing pleasant about his chakra. It was just pure evil. A malicious darkness that had made her young mind afraid of him. Even when Orochimaru introduced him as a fellow Uzumaki, he'd not been kind. Your chakra has become a little warmer. Not suffocating as it was once, Karen stated. How did you raise your chakra to this level? Miracles, Naruto replied with a shrug. That is the first thing you say. Don't you want to know why you're here and where your beloved Orochimaru is? That bastard isn't my beloved. Thinking of him gives me the creeps. You jest. Last time I checked, you were calling him Orochimaru-sama. Karen shrugged. I have no reason to hate him. He saved me. Didn't do anything to me. Naruto laughed at this. You'll be surprised. Orochimaru has killed the families of the people he targets and then presented himself as a saint. Naruto showed Karen to the living room. Once settled, he spoke in a serious tone. What did that man say to you? Nothing. Did he ask about your abilities? Yes. What did you tell him? Are you interrogating me? You are in this village because I made the call. Now, Danzo is the bad guy who'll have animals bite your skin until nobody can even recognize you. Naruto said in a cold tone. I didn't tell him anything. Besides, Kabuto showed up and told me before that Sai arrived. Karen waved his right hand dismissively. But I never said I actually want to be here. Did Kabuto come back? Yes. He said he was looking for something and stated Orochimaru-sama was killed by you, Karen replied. Looking for a way to revive him. But he is being hunted down. He is sneaky, but whatever he wants is in this village and they want to kill him. They. Masked men. Karen replied with indifference. Naruto sighed. He hoped Kabuto failed in whatever he was doing. He didn't want to face Orochimaru again. Get comfortable. Unless something happens, this is going to become your new home. I don't recall agreeing to living with you. And I know this is about the Uzumaki, but what does that have to do with me? She is going to be difficult, Naruto said to himself. I don't want to compel you to stay. But you don't have much a choice. You can try to leave, but you'll get captured by Danzo. And he will discover what makes you tick. He knows Orochimaru doesn't keep people close to him unless there is something special about them. If I were you, I wouldn't display that I am sensory type of kunoichi and not even make a hint that my chakra can heal any wound. Is he that bad? Yes. Man sees people as tools to be used for him, and when no longer useful, he doesn't discard you, he has you killed. Kabuto can testify to this. Naruto said, standing up. Come, let me show you your room. I'll give you money to get the things you want. When Hiruzen appeared in the office, Danzo wasn't even the least surprised. He had figured the old man would wake up. But of course, he had measures for returning to power. But he wasn't going to show hostility. Not when the old man appeared with Tsunade and the Anbu commander. He had found that Anbu were very loyal to the Hokage. Hiruzen was still Hokage, and as long as he was still alive, he couldn't have everything his way. He was the acting, and they were always conscious that their real leader was still unconscious. Hiruzen, Danzo said, leaning against the chair. He'd become too comfortable. To vacate this chair was unthinkable. He'd already made plans, and even redrawn maps. He couldn't allow this person to ruin it all. Danzo, it seems you've made yourself comfortable in my absence. Someone had to become comfortable to steer the village into the right path. You'd put us in a hole and I was trying to get us out. Are you sure you had nothing to with it? Danzo narrowed his eyes. Are you accusing me of something? Am I? I'm sure I merely asked a question. Hiruzen replied with a smile. You would do anything to get power. Even if it meant working with Orochimaru. Well, he is dead, so we can't prove anything at this stage. Indeed. Danzo nodded. Hiruzen didn't want to think about the flames that Danzo had put up. He was angry about it. But he could only sit in there and try to put them out as quickly as he could before they became raging wildfires. You've done well to make enemies, but I have returned. Please vacate my seat and let me know what has been happening so I can redo it. Redo? Danzo scoffed. I've done more for this village in the short days than what you've done in the past years. In any case, you are the Hokage. The man opened a drawer and then removed a scroll. The daimyo allowed me to carry this job. I was given the mandate to carry it out until you awoke. But this isn't so you can resume your duties, but that you wake and your successor is chosen. You'll do the honors of calling the daimyo to come back. I could continue to act, but I do not want Konoha to be dragged into a civil war, not when we have conflict with Iwa. How noble of you. I was certain I gave Jiraiya orders for your execution. And I can carry that now. You do remember that I know everything you've done, right? And go against the feudal lord. He said such matters would be handled by him when he comes back. You want to take decisions for him. And just like that, Danzo departed from the office. Tsunade and Hiruzen were shocked. Neither had expected to see things happen like this. Hiruzen didn't even sit behind his desk, but in front of it. What the hell just happened? Tsunade questioned. Trouble. That was the only way he could explain what just happened. It is likely Danzo already knew I was awake. He may even know the daimyo will be here shortly. But what is true is that he indeed wouldn't want to see the leaf dragged into a civil war at this time. Despite his tactics, he still loves Konoha. In any case, we should be afraid. Very afraid of what will come next. I get that, but what else was his reasoning? Danzo must have figured that as long as he is acting and I'm alive, I would always retain the loyalty of the shinobi. For him to have complete control would be if I'm dead, or if when the daimyo comes, he gets chosen on a permanent basis. Hokages always select their successors if they are able to, and no one has been able to usurp that. You have to be alive to select a successor. And the feudal lord must always rubber stamp it. A cage needs the support of the daimyo. Without it, we become sooner and most likely, scavengers causing troubles for anyone just so we can get jobs and fund the village. The feudal lord can make it so that other nations do not send missions to us. Without missions, our shinobi will leave to either become mercenaries or join other villages just for survival. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.